Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Soul Rising podcast, all in on love, loss, and connection. We're so glad that you have joined us, whether you are watching us on YouTube or on Apple, listening on Apple or Spotify. We're so glad that you've come back. We have a very special guest for you today. Her name is Melissa Ebken. She is the host of the Pursuing Uncomfortable podcast. And she took a chance on Ginny and I way back last summer when we were total newbies at this. And we had a great conversation there. You can also find that on her channel on YouTube. So go check that out if you haven't already. And welcome, Melissa. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? And we're going to launch into an awesome conversation after that.
Thank you, Amanda, and that was one of my favorite episodes, by the way, so if you do
Cool.
check it out, search it up, make sure you check it out. We had a great time and a great conversation, and I'm so thrilled to be on your podcast today. It's doing fantastic.
Thank you.
So
Thank you. Yeah, we're working hard at it. We're trying to we've gone the YouTube route. We're trying to post a lot of shorts. If any of you out there are podcasters, putting shorts on your YouTube, you probably know this, right, Melissa? It helps to train the algorithm to start showing it to more and more people. So we're
yeah.
trying. We're trying to get the message out there, as are you.
Yeah, it does make a difference. I was terrible at following through with that, but it does make a big difference. Um, Thank you for the opportunity to be here and to introduce myself. My name is Melissa Ebken. I've been a pastor for more than 25 years, and I always pause when I say that because I'm not that kind of pastor. I'm a pastor in the sense that, yes, I work at a church, I engage with people, we have a faith community, we try to do a lot of good in our community, and we try to grow our souls and spirits. But there's a lot of baggage that comes along with the title pastor. And so I like to say I'm not a stereotypical pastor, but I am proud to do what I do. I love the work. My favorite part about it is to help people lean into the really difficult and uncomfortable parts of their lives and just break through it all, knock through those obstacles. That's really where the opportunities for growth are, and it makes such a difference. And then the other thing that I'm really good at, and I love helping people with, is finding their spiritual type. I'm sure we'll discuss that a little more later,
Yeah.
but when we figure that out about ourselves, then we can really grow our spirits in tremendous ways. So that's what I do.
Yeah, thank you for introducing and all of that information. I can totally attest that you are not the typical pastor of what people think and pastors might do or their beliefs, or you're extremely open-minded. And I love that about you, that you are kind of taking religion and broadening it and making it more inclusive and giving people access to different ways of viewing religion, viewing spirituality. Yes, I love the, finding your spiritual type. It's that's just huge. Maybe you can tell us about some of the people that you encounter and maybe what like their do they have hangups? I know a lot of people have hangups about religion, but like specifically the people that you work with and the people that you talk to, when they come to you and say, "Yeah, but religion was kind of twisted and was kind of made to fit the human um, instincts and power and control and all of that." How do you answer people? How do you guide them through that process?
Thanks for asking that. And I would like to begin by saying I'm not a maverick in this at all. There are so many people like me. There are so many pastors and so many churches, synagogues, faith communities of many types. So I'm certainly not unique in that respect. So the problem is, however, that we don't have the big voice in culture. So often the voices that are heard
True.
predominantly are voices of exclusion and so forth and so on. I'm not going to spend time talking about those voices. When someone comes to me and they've had a rough time spiritually, which happens to a lot of us, we don't have to have a traumatic life to have a difficult spiritual life. Certainly, if we do have a traumatic life, it even further complicates our spiritual journeys. But a lot of people tell us to have a spiritual journey, to have a spiritual life, but they don't tell us how to do that.
Yeah.
They're the tried and trues. Go journal, make sure you pray, read holy texts, and those things. Okay, great. But what do I do with that? I
Yeah. What
tried praying and
exactly
I
does
ended up
that mean?
falling asleep. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
what does that mean? Like, how? Okay, I can do that. I could sit down and I could say whatever prayers I was taught growing up, the Hail Mary, the Our Father, but, like, what's the feeling associated with it? So how do you help people break that down?
well, first of all, I want them to know that, yeah, you're not the only one that fell asleep when you're trying to pray. You're not the only one that ended up with a nice grocery list when you're trying to meditate. That's just the nature of it. Uh, I've developed and I didn't develop this all on my own. Corrine Ware did some work in the early 90s that a lot of scientific work that laid the foundations for this. And I have built on her work that she did and have added my experience and what I've experienced anecdotally, I've added in here. She did the work on defining spiritual types, and if you like science and you want the breakdown of all of that, definitely Google her and get her book.
How do you spell it?
What I
Corinne? Corinne? What?
Corrine
Art.
and
Okay.
Ware is her name.
Corinne Ware. Okay. Spiritual types.
I believe so. I don't have the
Okay.
book with
Okay.
me. It's in my bag, and I don't wanna
That's
leave
okay.
you
If
here to
I
go
so
get it.
if I just Google it, if I put in her
That'll
name
come
and
up.
spiritual types, okay.
Absolutely.
And I'll also put that information in the, description for people who wanna look that up.
Perfect. She did a lot of great work. I encountered that work years ago and just saw immediately the brilliance of it. And from my experience as a pastor, just took what she did and I've built on it. And it's resonating with a lot of people. There are some of us who are more head people.
Mhm.
We want the information. Like if we attended a conference, say, we want the speakers to be absolutely prepared, nothing ad-libbed. We want the event to run very smoothly, as scheduled, as publicized.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
we grow and benefit from it when the information is researched and well presented.
Mhm.
Others of us are more heart people. When we
Mhm.
attend that event, we will benefit from it when there's give and take, when there's a more conversational type of experience. Uh, it doesn't have to be all scripted. If it's just from the person's heart, the speaker's heart, that's fine. I mean, nobody wants a hot mess, right?
Yeah,
But
exactly. It's like a there's a middle ground there, right?
of
Where, like, you
course,
have to have some kind of structure, some kind of order, but you could still be very authentic in that.
yes, yes. And for those 2 types, the head type personality, and I call that the sage, they worship in a similar way. They seek knowledge and understanding. So, spiritual practices for a sage also would seek knowledge and understanding. A sage would journal for the purpose of greater knowledge, for
Okay.
instance. That's different than why somebody else would journal. So the feeler then, that heart person I call the feeler, they are all about the story and experience. So this
Mhm.
is someone who in a worshipful environment would want to hear someone's authentic story of those transform transformative moments. And they want to share their transformative moment and they want others to. It's all about that moment. And music is a really powerful experience too. Music
Oh,
is powerful for all of us, but in a different way for the
yeah,
feeler.
yeah.
For the mystic, this is the person that is all about being, the journey, the quest. It's all about the journey, not necessarily the results, but not necessarily getting where you are, but the experience of going, the experience of doing.
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
mystic will have worship experiences wherever he or she might be, in the backyard, in the middle of
Mhm.
nature. That's kind of the core identifiers of the mystic. And then the last group I call the advocates. These are the people, they don't care about all the rest. It can be presented however it's presented, But the only relevant piece for the advocate is that the information given is for the benefit of helping others, for the benefit of making access available to all, for revamping the systems so that everyone can access it, everyone has a benefit there, everyone has the equal opportunity to participate. That's
Mhm.
what the advocate is all about. So, very quickly and generally, those are the four different types of spiritual personalities. And when we have an idea, and again, this isn't to label ourselves, this isn't to say I'm this and not that.
Mhm.
It's to have an understanding of how our spirits kind of lean, if you will. And when we know that about ourselves, then we can tailor those practices to benefit us.
Hmm.
So, for instance, if we take uh, the practice of journaling, say, and if I'm a mystic, I'm going to journal in a different way than if I'm a sage. So if I'm a
Like
sage and I
how?
sit down to
Like
journal,
how? What would be an example of, like, how a sage would journal versus a mystic?
okay, a sage is going to journal for further understanding. So a sage might have an idea or a topic or a book he or she recently read, or a sermon or a speech that they recently heard, and they're going to journal to dig in on those points and to understand it more deeply. A mystic is going to journal for the sake of journaling. Whatever
Oh,
prompt is there, it's the practice of doing it, of expressing it. Uh, the feeler is going to journal for understanding his or her own story, to tell their experience, to to capture their experience. If they had one of those spiritual moments, they would journal in a way to capture that so that they can have that within them. The advocate is gonna journal in a different way entirely. For an advocate, you might journal about, a brainstorming session of what you might need to do in order to improve a certain situation. So if the city council that you're a part of is or the in the community you're in is considering different topics or not considering different topics, you might journal to understand better how you can approach them or how you can take some kind of topic that you're passionate about and make it manifest. So those are very different journaling activities.
mhm, mhm. Now, can these personality types cross over? Because as I'm listening to you, of course, I'm
Absolutely.
thinking about myself because that's what
Mhm.
humans do, right? And I'm like, okay, well, which one might I be? And I feel like I have a little bit of each of those. Is that like a
Yeah,
thing you find?
the more we mature, the more we grow, the more of each we're gonna have.
Okay,
We're gonna have an instinct in one of those more than the others, but
sure.
hopefully as we grow and mature, we'll have aspects of each of them. Now to stay well balanced, if you imagine these in 4 quadrants, so don't picture them in a linear fashion.
Okay.
And if you're listening to the podcast, it's important that you see I'm using my hands because it adds so much to the understanding here. But, picture a quadrant. The sage is in the the top right if you're looking at it. The feeler is just below. To the left in quadrant 3 would be the mystic, and above that and next to the sage would be the advocate.
Okay.
So if you're going diagonally, the sage would be diagonal from the mystic. The feeler would be diagonal from the advocate. And this is
Okay.
important because these two have a relationship to each other. If
Hmm.
you're a sage, you can become easily isolated in your own thoughts and disregard the emotions of others or consider or become out of touch with those emotions. If the sage personality type spends time with the mystic part of themselves, that will help keep them grounded and balanced.
Hmm.
Conversely, if the mystic is only in their mystic selves, so to speak,
Hmm.
they can also become isolated in a different way. and enacting that sage part of their personality can help keep them grounded, get them out of the clouds and keep their feet on the ground a little bit. The feeler personality and the advocate, those are also dynamically related.
Mhm.
And that the work of the advocate is bleak and it's
Mm.
never ending and it's oppressive. And if they don't do the work of awakening that feeler part of their personality, they can get lost in that and
Mm.
lose hope and motivation.
Yeah.
Also, the feeler types, it's not just about you and that moment, it's also about people. So, awakening that advocate part of yourself will keep you connected to purpose here.
Yeah, it's so important, I think, to look at the positive or the good or, aspects of these different personality types, as well as looking at the ones that don't serve as well, those parts of us that don't serve, right? Because as a whole human on the whole spectrum, we're going to have parts of us that serve humanity better and parts that do not. So I think it's important to get very honest. I love that you brought that up and that this I wrote it down because I'm visual too. I wanted to see like, okay, yes, so those the sage and the mystic can help each other, and the
Mhm.
advocate and the feeler can help each other. I love that. And that isn't that what we're all here for in our regular personalities as well, why we're all different, you know,
Absolutely.
spiritual or grounded or material or however you want to look at it, right? Right. Out in the world, we're here to show each other or like I'm here with you for you to show me, what in me needs to be healed, essentially healed, right? Not really fixed or changed or anything, but more healed so that I can be more of a full person and go out in the world and be of service and do good work and be loving and
Yeah.
helpful and kind and compassionate because I believe that's what we're missing. That's the missing link right now in society is just all this fear that, is just crowding all that good stuff out. So this is a great way, I think, to get back into that. It's all on another level, on a soul and a spiritual level. So when people come to you for to do this work, is it difficult for them to figure out which one they are? Do you have sort of like an assessment or criteria? Like how can somebody really figure out who they are in this landscape?
I have put together 20 questions, and they're tough questions. They're multiple choice, and you have to pick, the classic which best describes you, and sometimes it's really hard to pick one.
Mhm.
But I have a way of I hate to use the word scoring, but a way of scoring those or a way of processing the results that allows for that ambiguity. I have it all set up, and I'll send a link to you,
Great.
and if
Love
you
that. I'll
want to
include that.
share it, great.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm still getting all of the tech bits lined up, so it's not ready to go yet, but it will be in March of 2024 or April 1st at the absolute latest.
Okay.
So if you want to sign up for that, you can be on the wait list. You'll be the first to know, and I'll give you a special bonus for signing up
Perfect.
early.
Perfect.
But
Perfect.
I have a group of 20 questions, and I've used them on a lot of my friends, and they've helped me tweak them and make them even better. But that will help you to look deeply within yourself and find what there is to find. And then the score sheet, again, I hate that name, but it works for now,
Yeah.
allows for that. And what will happen at the end, you'll get a cluster of results, and you look at the cluster, not the individual things. So my cluster is mostly in this area, but it overlaps in these. Or my
Okay.
cluster is mostly in this area, but it overlaps these as well. Again, the more we mature, the longer we're on this journey, the more it's going to move toward the middle and encompass many of
Mhm.
them. But we will have an instinct that a comfort level with one more than the others. And
So
it's not
every few
about
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
It's not about, finding a label for yourself. It's not about discovering, "Oh, I'm a mystic." That's neither here nor there, but it's
Mm,
finding out what my instincts are spiritually so that I can grow. And I really liked what you were saying, and how cool would it be in this world if we all felt that we were agents of wholeness, that we were those who facilitated wholeness in ourselves and then in others as well. That if we could all be that catalyst to help everyone grow in the way they need to grow, how cool would that be?
Yeah, and to look at these deficiencies or shortcomings or however you want to view it as something that is very intentionally put in us for that growth, for that journey toward wholeness, right? It just keeps us grounded and humble too, right? To say, like, yeah, I have all this great stuff about me, but I also have this other stuff that if I can learn how to use it rightly, can serve well. So do you think that every human being on the planet is in one of those four? I know you say overlap, but essentially has one of those four type is one of those four types.
I think
Everybody
that every human has an instinct of one of those 4
toward
types.
one.
That
Okay.
under stress or in their most, pressing moments, one instinct would rise above the others.
Okay. Yeah. That sounds pretty accurate to me. I think that that's probably accurate. Well, it is if you're saying it. So So, what would be one connecting thread through all four of them? Because I also want to talk to you about, like, we don't have a lot of quote unquote, religious or pastor minister type of men and
Mhm,
women on our show. We haven't yet anyway, and we haven't been on many of those types of shows. So I really want to tap into more about, like, of the what's the connecting thread between
mhm,
everybody on a spiritual basis, because I think that institutions, religious institutions, have done a fairly good job of pushing people away in terms of, like, putting certain ideas out there that people think that they have to believe in order to go to this certain institution. Like, I go
mm,
to an Episcopal church, but I sort of take what I need and leave the rest. There's some scripture in there that I hear about, like, fearing God and judgment and all this kind of stuff. And to me, my God doesn't judge. And I don't think that I'm going to go to heaven or hell or purgatory or whatever and have this whole, like, judgment day of me. Yeah, I believe that there's going to be an overview, if you will. There's going to be a discernment process, if you will, of, okay, what did you do? What didn't you do? That kind of stuff.
mhm.
But not in a judgmental or shaming way. And I think a lot of people shy away from spirituality on the whole because they think it means religion. And it doesn't, right? What do you think?
Thank you for that question. The uniting thread is that we are embodied spirits. We have bodies, we have souls, we have spirits, and they each serve a function. The body is the obvious one. It's how we communicate with each other in this world. It's how we move through this world. We get what the body is. And the soul and the spirit, they get a little more difficult to identify. Think of one as the housing that runs the ship, that houses the thought processes, the mind, the values, and the other one as the gut. The other one is the what transcends this life, what defines who we are at its whole. Now, I know we could spend 3 hours discussing the differences among those, and I'd rather
But
not
my
get lost down that rabbit hole.
yeah.
But that's what unites us. We are body, mind, and spirit. They are not distinguishable. Thank you, Plato. We are still living in a Greek influenced world where there's a division of all of those things. Uh, and I would say that as human consciousness and humanity has grown and evolved, we're beginning to see that yeah, we get why Plato saw what he saw and said what he said, but that we can understand that these things are all united, that they're the
They're
same thing. The body, the
mm,
mind, and the spirit, it's all one. So that's the thread that unites us. We are spiritual beings. Religion, honestly, to define religion, it's just a group of people who agree on a few ideas about spirituality and gather together. I mean, at its core. That's what religion is. Now, wherever you find humans running things, there will be corruption,
Sure.
just how things are.
Yeah.
So a good idea can become corrupt pretty quickly.
Agree.
Whatever we're talking about, whether it's matters of spirituality or anything else. So if you're looking for a perfect human institution on earth, you're going to be disappointed.
It's not gonna happen, and very often, don't we do that? We look for what's wrong
Right.
with something, right?
Yeah.
What's wrong instead of what's
So
good. Right.
you covered a lot of different ideas. Some of them were ideas of scripture, some were ideas of theology, some were ideas of belief. And I would handle and address all of those differently.
Okay.
To keep it not a 3-hour answer,
Okay.
let me just say these things. And if you want to discuss any of them further, I'm happy to. Uh, but speaking from a faith standpoint, many of us have had a Psych 101 course and have encountered Piaget's work and know the hierarchy of needs that Maslow has set forth,
Mhm.
that we have to have the basic needs of food and shelter and attachment, a healthy attachment to other human beings before we can learn any of the other things. And as we experience those, other levels of growth become available to us until the top of that is self actualization. James Fowler was a contemporary of these guys, and he did work that was equivalent in the faith sphere. So his work is Stages of Faith by James Fowler, and he goes through how at different ages, different aspects of faith become available to us. And of course, when we're younger, we can't think abstractly, nor can we do faith abstractly. God is good, devil bad. Good
Mm.
behavior equals God, bad behavior equals devil.
Mhm.
Okay, once we get to be about 12 years old, our brains grow and we are capable of abstract thought, and so is faith. Faith is then available to grow beyond those ideas. That maybe it's not all about good, bad, heaven, hell, those contrasts.
Mhm.
And then, when we're in stage 3 faith, and you can Google that, or if you get on the wait list, I have a document that goes through those as well. Uh,
Perfect.
Many of us are in that stage 3 faith in our teens and early 20s that this is what I believe. And if I hear any thought or idea or concept that doesn't fit in that, I either have to change what I believe to accommodate it or
Mhm.
disallow what I hear.
That's stage
And
3.
I think yes.
Okay.
And a lot of folks haven't grown out of that stage.
You know what?
So
It's
we
interesting you bringing this up because I'm so glad you're bringing it up because when I was ending therapy, I was in this last time for about 5 years, and she was starting to teach me this. She was starting
Mhm.
to talk about these different stages. I didn't realize it until you just started explaining what the stages are. So, okay, so
Yeah,
most
and
people
then
cut it in 3.
yeah, and this is a crucial part of faith. Stage 4 faith is running away. Stage 4 faith is going out and chasing the demons, see where they dwell. This happens in our 20s, or it becomes available to us in our 20s.
Okay.
That's why, any church survey, poll, whatever, who's missing in churches? The 20-year-olds, where are they? Well, they
Yeah.
are growing. Some of them may make it to stage 5, some may not. But
Testing
that's an
boundaries
important
in the 20s. That's what you do in your 20s, right? You explore,
yeah.
you test some things out. Yeah.
Yeah, those careful structures that we've grown up in or that we were raised to believe, they start to fall apart, and we see that those aren't sustainable.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it all kinda desynthesizes for us or comes apart for us, deconstructs. Now, stage 5 faith becomes available when we can hold a paradox and be okay with it. That's when we reach a new level of faith that allows for a whole lot more in our spiritual health and life. For instance, the community I live in, back in 2004, we had a chemical plant explosion. Horrible deal. nightmare for the community, but it was the most apocalyptic thing any of us have ever
Wow.
experienced.
Yeah.
But, from that, I often talk to folks around here that when that happened, imagine if a poet and a physicist both witnessed it, and they both wrote about it. Are they gonna write the same thing?
Mm,
Obviously not.
yeah.
Which one is wrong?
Yeah.
Obviously, neither is wrong.
Mhm.
You know, the poet might write about, the apocalyptic hand that reached out. The physicist is probably gonna write a lot of formulas and Greek letters standing for things and equations and talk
Mhm.
about forces and magnetism and gravity and different things.
Mhm.
It's still the same conversation.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, and that's where I think we all need to be headed toward, is this
Yeah.
more open mind, being able to see things from different angles, you know? And why do you think people don't? Why do you think people get stuck in a lower stage where it's like what I think is right, and that's just it? I'm not open to see things from through a different lens.
It's scary as hell. That's
Fear.
why. When you're in that stage 3 faith and you hear or experience something that challenges everything you've known and been told and taught your whole life, it's
Mm.
terrifying to have to question all of that.
Hmm. So do you think it's like an ego death? Do you think like that is so super powerful going back to survival? I mean, this fear has such a grip on us that it has to threaten us in some major way other than just I'm wrong, right? That I'm wrong has to equate to something much more threatening than just maybe I'm wrong, right? Because some people are just
For
so
sure.
set in their ways.
Well, I think it can put us in a state of fight or flight, to be honest with you. If we panic or threatened, the body doesn't know the difference. The brain doesn't know the difference between a saber-toothed tiger bearing down on us or somebody driving erratically that's headed right for us or somebody threatening our well-being even with ideas or concepts or constructs. Our brains and bodies don't know the difference between those. Our brains are designed to survive.
Yeah.
So we're going to do what we have to do to survive.
So somebody threatening the way that we think about things could kind of, even though it might just be so simple as like the examples that you just stated, our brains take it to this other place of
Yeah, our brains can't process it. We have that part of our brain in common with all other living creatures. And then if you
Mhm.
go up the animal chain, you know, I do have a biology degree. That's how I started this crazy journey.
You are
Um,
so interesting, Melissa. Oh my God. You're
Thank you.
awesome.
Life is for the living, right?
That is.
Uh, that other level of brain on top of that, that the mammalian brain, the mammal brain that all of us have. If you have a pet, if you have a dog or if you have a cat,
I
you know
do.
that pet loves you.
Yes.
And they have that part of a brain that we share. That's where all the emotions are. When you're in love, that's the part of the brain that's firing up. And, you
Mm-hmm.
know, we make stupid decisions when we're in love, right?
Yeah.
Because it's part of the brain we're in. Also, as humans, other animals have this miracle neocortex. I'm calling it by the incorrect name, but this big part of our brain, when we see a picture of the brain and the big part, the neofrontal cortex, all of those cells there, other mammals have that, but not in the concentration that we do as humans. That allows us to stop and think. If we're in fight or flight, we can make ourselves stop and we can think and we can process things. Some people are trained to do this. If you think about a SEAL team member or a police officer, this is the training they have, is to be able in the middle of a whole lot of chaos to be able to stop and think. That's a good definition of leadership, by the way, when we're in the middle of
Yeah.
chaos to be
Mhm.
able
Mhm.
to think clearly.
Yep.
But when
Yep.
we can do that with our faith, then a whole lot more is possible to us and available to us.
I love that. And that's why we are. human and spirit, right? Because it's the blending. I've been very big on talking about this blending of the two that I believe we're being called to do. It's not one or the other. God gave us brains, God gave us
Mhm.
intellect. It's how we use it.
Yeah, we all come from God, that we're an aspect of God, and to God we will return. And whatever you call that source, some people call that source, some people call that spirit, some people call it higher power. I call that God. Do you remember, Amanda, we're of an age where I think we have this experience in common that you used to watch a slideshow projection, not a PowerPoint one, but the actual slides. They were in a
Uh huh.
projector,
Uh huh. Yep.
and you have the light projecting it onto a screen,
Yep.
and if
We
you
did that in
look at the
college. I
light
used that
you
in college. I'm not
yeah,
that young, born in 1980. We had the projector and it went up on the screen. Yeah, I did projects like that. Yeah.
yeah. Well, if you look at the light coming out of the projector, it's white. But
Mhm.
if you look at the screen, some of that white light has been filtered out so that we see partial bits of that white light, because the white is the culmination of all the colors. So when that slide is in there, it filters out some of those wavelengths so that we see different things. I think that's what happens in life, that God somehow puts in a filter and you get each of us. And
Mm.
we are all aspects of that holiness, that spirit, that source, and we get the opportunity to experience whatever this world has for us to experience. Some of us are gonna have a much better experience than others. Some are gonna experience the worst of this reality, and some are gonna have different experiences of it. But we all return into that great knowing, that great spirit.
Yes. I love that metaphor. Wow, that is awesome. That we're all
That's
coming from this light, but then
yeah.
individually filtered out, I guess through our experiences. Color, create that color that
Mhm.
changes. Wow, that's really cool. I never thought of it that way. Super cool.
Thanks.
So
I would
you mentioned
love to say I invented that, by the way, but I didn't. Douglas Richards writes a whole lot of science fiction books, and he thought of that image, so
it's very,
credit
very
where
cool. I love it. Well, thanks for bringing it to us and to the audience. I love it. It's really, really cool. So you talked a little bit before about the different. You were talking about it. I believe you were talking about the spirit and the soul. Can you explain? Just because I've been curious, I have sort of my own feel and definitions of it, but like, what's the difference between the spirit and the soul?
okay, um, I would have to look it up to remember the specifics.
Well, no, just coming
One
from you. No, no, well, it doesn't need to be a real definition. Your own
yeah,
personal view.
in my personal view, one of them, and, pick which name you want to use it for. One of them houses those things that don't change about me, the basic values I have, my basic sense of what is good and true. The other one deals with ethics and morals and making decisions at the time. And the information that we have can change. Our
Mhm.
thoughts and ideas can change, but there are certain levels of our values that don't. So that would be the distinction for me.
So the ones that don't change is that the soul, because the soul to me feels more like maybe permanent, I guess is what's coming to my mind. Where like that's just who I am, and then my spirit within that can maybe waver and change and grow, but my soul is kind of constant. Is that
Yeah,
fair to say?
some people might interchange those words
Mhm.
but you have the concepts. Sure. One is changeable due to the information, the experiences, and the interactions we have. And the other one, I don't want to say fixed, but I do want to say more constant.
Okay. Yes, because the soul does grow, right? We talk a lot about
Yeah.
soul growth, and that's just what
Mhm.
we're here to do. So it's not always the same, but I believe there's a certain essence about my soul that's probably going to continue in the next life. And then I believe in reincarnation and it's going to come back. But I believe and then we talk about spiritual growth, within that soul growth. So Yeah, I think I don't know if listeners, if people have ever questioned that, but I've always wondered like what the difference is. And it's personal. All this stuff is very
Mhm.
personal to us, right? There is no pat answer or a straight definition. We can put it in the dictionary, right? We can write something down, but it's going to be and it's supposed to be interpreted differently for each of us because we each have a different or very similar but different purpose, right?
Yeah, and, I might become so much more wise in life and have a different answer for you in 20 years than I do now. I certainly have a different answer today than I did in my 20s.
As it should be. Like, I just wrote a book, right? And I know I'm gonna look back on that in, like, 10 or 15 years, and a lot of my ideas in there are probably gonna change, as they
Mhm.
should, right? I can't be so
Right.
hard and fast, like, to this idea. I have to be malleable. I have to be open. It's just that's just the way that I believe we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be in the flow. Flow is my word for 2024.
I
And
love
it's
it.
thank you. It's very hard for me because I come from a lot of that headspace, the
Mm,
intellectual, that like, but I also have that spirit side that drives me. So it's hard for me to just trust and go with things because the way I was raised, the way I was born, the lessons I have to learn, whatever it is, I have this like, if I can control it, then I'm going to feel safe and the outcome's going to be predictable, right? So I'm trying to just be more in the flow. And I think that goes with just nature.
mm,
Nature, right? The change of the seasons, the tide, the ocean coming in and out, everything. We're
mm.
rotating. The sun of everything is in a constant state of flow. So I'm trying hard this year to just be in that. And that's where I find my spirituality. So that
Mm.
nature, was that the feeler? Is that the one? Maybe that's where I'm more, or was that the
That
mystic? I'm not sure
could
which
be a
one is
lot of them. You could be that with any of those, but
okay.
it's all in how you process it and internalize it. Um, it's you know, it would be a lot easier not having to think and deconstruct and reconstruct, wouldn't it? And I think that's the
Then
temptation.
life would be too
Right.
easy. What would we do? What would
Yeah.
we do with our time, right? If we weren't trying to figure some things out, right? It
Mhm.
gives us that critical thinking and that reasoning, which is necessary to get us to the next stage of humanity, which is where I believe we're all headed and why it's so difficult right now, is because there is a lot that needs to be heightened, maybe our senses, our sense of love really is just what needs to be
Mhm.
heightened right now, what we're, being called to do, I believe. So, yeah, that reason works to a certain point, and not saying that that's it, that that's all there is just man, it's just human form, we're the center of the universe. No, we're here and we're very helpful and our brains are going to help us, but we have to be open to spirit, to have spirits guiding us and blend the two. That's my challenge this year, I guess, forever.
Yeah, and, it's usually the problems, the difficulties, the uncomfortable stuff that challenges us to grow. My whole shtick, if you will, is to lean
Yep.
into the difficult and uncomfortable things because that's how you grow. Don't push them away. Uh, embrace
That's right up
them.
my alley. That's yeah. Yep. Right.
Yeah, that was the name of my podcast and the name of my book that is 99.9% complete. I just have
Oh,
a
I didn't know
problem of
that.
letting it go. So,
And it's
of
a tough
releasing
it's
it
a
into
tough
the world.
process. Yeah, it's a tough process. And at some point you just know it's ready. You just know you'll know
Yeah,
like it's ready to go. But
yeah.
it's hard because it's like your baby and you wanna make sure that what you're saying in there is like I was saying, 20 years from now, we're gonna be different people. 10 years, 5
Mhm.
years from now. But I'm sure
Yeah.
you're saying what needs to be said for right now.
Yeah, and there's a part of me that says, "But I'm not gonna be saying this, maybe, maybe not. I don't know, so I'm gonna hold on to." No, I just gotta let it go. This is who I
Sure.
am today.
Yes, 100%. I saw something recently I thought was pretty cool. It was some kind of meme or whatever, and it said that there's nothing really novel. There's really no originality anymore. If you look at the plethora of material that we have and the amount of years we've been around and the geniuses and the wise people and the sages and the people that everything that's been said, it's more about saying it in a way that's going to resonate with people now. It's taking what's
Mm,
kind of already laid there, the foundation, the information that I believe we have it all. I believe all the answers are already here. It's just writers, speakers. It's sort of our job now to elucidate it and give the information to people in a way that they can consume it,
mhm.
understand it, take it in, and then give this almost the same stuff back out. So we're all just kind of regurgitating similar stuff, but in different ways so that people can understand it, right? You could say one thing and I could say the same exact thing. And for some reason, that person over there is going to hear it from you, but not from me.
Yeah, and a corollary to that is giving people a safe space to deconstruct and reconstruct and synthesize things, and you do that so well, Amanda. You
Oh,
and Jenny
thank you.
both. You're fantastic of creating that space for
Thank you.
people.
Yeah, and our faithful here, Ginny is not here today because she was caught up on a work call, but she so wanted to be here. And yeah, so you just got me today. But yeah, Jeannie and I are a good team. And she's amazing. She's just
Absolutely.
amazing. She brings so much to the table. Wow. So thank you for saying that. Appreciate that.
Sure. I mean, my goodness, if 3 of us were here, we might be talking well into the next 48 hours, right?
Yes, 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 yes. That's what happened. That's what happened. So yeah, good spiritual energy between us. So is there anything that we didn't cover that you were hoping to any message you were hoping to give today to listeners?
One last thing that's just niggling at the corner of my consciousness a little bit.
Yeah. What?
Earlier, you mentioned scriptural texts, and the Bible says this or says that. Context is important. Uh, we can lift any verse from the Bible to, well, we can't lift any verse. We can justify any thought or any inclination that we have by finding a verse in the Bible that would support it. So, one of my big things is learning about the context. Context is so important. Find out what community it came from, what the traditions were there, what the context was there, and what that message meant in that time and in that
Mhm.
community and among those people. That's how you get wisdom from holy text, whether it's a Bible uh, or any other text from any other world religion.
That's a great point, because maybe what I'm hearing of the fear of, fear of God and fire, brimstone, all that. Maybe it's not I've always felt like it's not all meant to be so literal, scripture. And I think sometimes I take it literally when I need to be thinking more about exactly what you said. What was the intention of it at that
Mhm.
time? Or is it more metaphorical, than literal? And,
And what did
thinking
it
about
mean
it.
in that community? We might be extracting this meaning from it, and they had no concept of that in that
Yeah.
day and
Yes, because
time.
it was 2,000 years ago. Things were a lot different. Yeah.
Things change.
That's a great
Yes.
point. It's a
Yeah.
great point. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, that'll definitely help me to be more open-minded when I'm listening to some stuff that kinda, makes me bristle a little bit. But,
I
yeah.
did a podcast episode about that if you're interested
Oh,
in
you
it.
did?
But
What is it
yeah.
called? Do you remember what you named it?
Goodness, I don't, but I can send you the link to it if you want.
Yeah.
But it goes
Yeah,
into how
I would
to
like to do that.
interpret.
I'd
It
like
doesn't
to.
tell you what to interpret, it tells you how to. So,
Perfect. That's great. That's awesome. Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Melissa. This was such a great hour-ish spent with you. And
love every minute of it.
I got a lot out of our talk. I hope our community does as well. And everybody, if you like this show, share it, comment it on it, go follow Melissa on Instagram. Where can people find you? Where do you want us to hunt you down?
Facebook or YouTube or my website are the best places to interact. And if you email me, I will email you back.
What's your email address? Do you want me just to put it in the notes or do you want to say it now?
Sure. It's Melissa at melissaebken.com
Okay.
and
It's easy.
Melissa at melissaebken.com.
Yeah, and I'll have your name in the title of the show so people can go and check that and get it accurate. So awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I totally appreciate it. This was a great conversation. We'll have to do it again in hopefully less than 20 years when our ideas change and we can watch this and
Absolutely.
go back and say, "Oh man, what was I thinking?"
And thank you so much for the opportunity. I am so thrilled to follow the work that you and Jenny are doing. You're making a tremendous difference in this world, and I'm grateful to not only benefit from it, but to be a small part of it. So thank you
You
for that
too.
opportunity.
You too. You too. Keep on keeping on. We're doing good work all around. So thank you for saying that. Okay, I'll talk to you soon. Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.